Freedom and independence were a recurring theme of this war. The citizens of British and French colonies all hoped that one day they could break away from the yoke of their rulers, but many of them preferred not undertake an American or French-style revolution. But for the Arabs living under the boot of the Ottoman Empire, this style was needed to break away from such cruel oppressors, like the sultans and now Pasha brothers that ruled the Ottoman Empire. In the 19th century, Arabs dreamed of an Arabia free of foreign Turkish rule. In 1913, the first Arab Congress was held in Paris by politicians and intellectuals to discuss greater autonomy, equality, education in the Arabic language, Arab conscripts to serve close to home, and Arab ministers in the cabinet. But then war broke out a year later, and many of these requests were shoved aside by the Ottomans. Sharif Hussein bin Ali appointed himself as the leader of the Arab people in an Arab Revolt in 1916. He was said to be the 37th generational descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, due to his family lineage. Letters were exchanged between him and Lieutenant Colonel Sir Henry McMahon, the High Commissioner of Egypt, discussing if bin Ali could raise an army to fight the Ottomans, then the British would help them to overthrow the Ottoman rulers and make bin Ali the leader of the Arabian people and recognize Arabia as its own state, free from the Turks when they were defeated. Bin Ali suspected that treachery was around the corner when dealing with the colonialist Europeans, but he knew that small tribes, even if united, could not contest with the Ottomans, who were being supplied by the most modern army in the world, the German army. He needed Britain's help whether he liked it or not. He garnered a force of about 5,000 Arabs and attacked the Ottoman stronghold city of Mecca. Only 1,000 Ottoman troops were defending the city at the time. Bin Ali fired a shot in the air, heard throughout the entire city, which signaled the start of the revolution. The attack was so sudden the occupying Ottoman troops didn't know what was happening, and were ill-equipped to handle such a full-scale military attack on the city. The Ottoman government office was captured and the deputy governor ordered his troops to surrender, but the troops refused and continued fighting. Artillery pieces were then brought from Egypt to assist in the ensuing battle, and the ancient walls were quickly breached by modern artillery. The holy city was now in the hands of bin Ali and his son Prince Faisal. The British and French would then send over several officers to assist in the revolt. France had the foresight to send over Muslim officers, which made things much easier for the French. The British took the approach of best man for the job, and sent over probably one of the most famous figures of the early 20th century, a young open-minded lieutenant stationed in Cairo, Thomas Edward Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia. T.E. Lawrence had a love for history and a love for the customs and cultures of the Arab peoples, and grew to sympathize with their plight against the oppressive Ottoman rulers. Lawrence convinced Faisal and his brother, Abdullah, to coordinate their attacks with British strategy, which would yield greater success for the Arabs. He, with his Bedouin rebels, would attack the vital Hijaz railway line that was the main supply line for the Ottoman army. The Ottomans would have to spend precious time repairing the railway, therefore cutting off many troops that were required in battles with the British in the Middle East. The Suez Canal was vital to the British, and they needed to divert Ottoman attacks away from this area, or else British power in the Middle East would be precarious. Thus attacking railways was a crucial strategy in the campaign. However, attacking railways would not be Lawrence's only contribution. He was ordered to take the city of Aqaba with his Bedouin rebels. He only had Commander Abu Taya, who he would advise, and a small band of rebels. This number would increase as they marched through towns in the desert, recruiting more and more Arabs as they got closer to the city. By July 6, 1917, they had amassed a force of about 5,000 men, against a garrison of 300 Ottoman troops. With support from 2 British battleships, the rebels took the port city and opened the way to Damascus, which was the main target of the Arab Revolt. If they took Damascus, then the Ottoman influence in the area would be extinguished. The Arabs that fought with Lawrence loved him, and Lawrence even started dressing like the Arabs as a sign of respect and acceptance. But he knew this alliance would not last, as the treacherous hands of his superiors were pulling strings in the interest of their own nation, and not the nation that the Arabs hoped to form. In the spring of 1916, 2 politicians, Mark Sykes of Britain and Francois Georges-Picot of France, discussed how the British and French were going to split up the Middle East between them once the war was won. The Russian Empire was also in talks to participate in the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire, but once the civil war within their empire broke out, they left the talks. It would be divided into Zone A, which would become Syria, and Zone B, which would become Iraq. Jordan and Lebanon would also be byproducts of this split. The new borders split up Arab families, but also caused some Arabs who wanted nothing to do with each other to be forced to coexist, thus leading to decades of violence and clashes between different sects of Islam. On October 9, 1917, the British would take the ancient holy city of Jerusalem, which was abandoned by the Ottomans after several defeats around the city caused the army to officially surrender Jerusalem to the British. This opened the doorway to the main prize, Damascus. Towards the end of the war, Damascus would fall to the Australians and Arabs, led by T.E. Lawrence. A temporary government led by Prince Faisal would be formed, but many of the Arabs would not be able to agree on several issues. The British and the French, also breaking their promise for a unified Arab nation, dashed away any hopes of peace. Bin Ali's area of the Middle East would eventually be overthrown in the 1920s by a powerful family known as the House of Saud. Caliphs, who later go on to form the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They believed in a very far-right extremist form of Islam known as Wahhabism. Groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS followed the strict form of Islamic extremism as well. The British had lied to the Arabs and only poured money into their cause so that they could defeat a common enemy. Britain spent over £220,000 weekly into the revolt and wanted a return on their investment. That return was Arabia.